Back here on Perspectives, our guest in studio, Dr. Michael McCain, and he is the author of the book, Taking Out the Trash, Life Editing, Volume Number 1, and we're talking a little bit about how a person can really rid themselves of the necessary things that they need to, so that way they can actually move on in life and actually be successful. When we look at television, we look at movies, we see a lot of people out there who are very successful. In your book, you talk about celebrities, and you know, one of the greatest things that we see about them are celebrities who, quote unquote, have arrived. But you look at it as not just the fact that they've arrived, but you also do a little bit of digging into their trash, if you will.
Right. I mentioned several. I mentioned Tyler Perry. I mentioned Oprah Winfrey. I mentioned Bill Gates. And these were all people that experienced major failures before they became the household names that we know today. In some perspective, people look at them and see their successes, but don't realize the road that they had to take to get there. And that road didn't often look like they would become the person that they are today. For instance, Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard, started a business that failed, and then later was successfully able to start what we call Microsoft and succeed. Oprah Winfrey failed at television as far as being an interviewer and doing news and media, but later became the face of news and media and the mother of all talk shows. Tyler Perry failed at being successful as far as his plays was concerned, not drawing the right crowd, not drawing enough crowd to substantially pay even his actors that act in his play, and now is a household name with his movies. So these were all people who had to go through some things, that had to experience some things that basically molded them. Those experiences molded them into the successes that they turned out to be later.
So your message to people who have encountered failure or going through failure right now is what?
I often say failure is redirection. When you're faced with failure, failure gives you that opportunity to look at your life, reassess where you are, reassess what's going on in your life, and put yourself on a different path.
So as we're talking here, we're talking about getting your life in order and actually taking out the trash, dealing with some of the issues that we deal with in everyday life. And a lot of us carry a lot of baggage, and a lot of us deal with a lot of things that are really can be detrimental to our health. And in our book, in this book here, Dr. McCain shares a little bit about that. And one of the things that he talks about in his book is about the idle spirit. And a lot of people have a lot of idle time. And I guess when you have that idle spirit, there's a lot of things that comes with that.
Right. When you have an idle spirit, you're not operating in purpose. You're not operating in what you've been called to do. What is the real reason why you're here? What is the value that you have to give to the world? What is the gift that you should be presenting to the world, and how serious do you really take that? Because when you understand what you're here to do, you get about the business of doing it. And once you get about the business of doing it, you become the answer to someone's need. You become what is in need. Basically, your gift becomes in demand. And often people want to be in demand, but they're not operating in the purpose that they should be operating in.
And so, push that out a little bit further.
For instance, I was guilty of that, knowing that I had answers, knowing that people depended on me for answers, but I refused to cultivate that gift. I refused to cultivate my art as a speaker, as a writer, and it took me a long time to center myself, to realize that people are not just calling on me just for the great advice, but it was something even further. I had untapped potential that I could reach more people with the gift that I had if I just center myself more. And one of the things that I experienced is that after becoming a published author and putting my stuff out there, there were so many people or so many lives that were being touched that would have never been possible as long as I stayed in that idle zone and not operating in what I was called to do.
When you talk about being that author, you're not just the author of this particular book, he's the author of actually 10 books. And so, you know, when you get down to writing 10 books, I guess literary is your gift and your calling there. Some of the books that he's written is The Purpose-Driven Prayer Life and Soul Cleanse and Epiphany Letters and The Recession Millionaire. Talk to me about The Recession Millionaire.
The Recession Millionaire is a book that I developed for entrepreneurs who understood that in this recession or in the famine that we've experienced, that there was something beyond a 9 to 5 that was calling them, that there was untapped potential, there were untapped gifts there were skills that they've been using that they have rendered to the marketplace but not really used for themselves. And in our society, we do that. You know, we're taught, go get a 9 to 5, and we're not often taught how to cultivate our own skills and use them to make money for ourselves. So those are some of the perspectives that I was speaking from in that particular book.
And as you look around, you see a lot of people with a lot of potential. And, you know, it's sad to say that some people will never maximize their potential to become the person that they really need to become. But what are some of the key elements that a person can look? Because you have somebody out there right now who says, listen, you know what, Daren, I really feel like I could do this. I really feel like I could become this. But there's something holding me back. What do I tell somebody who says, well, you know, there's something that's holding me back? How do I help somebody to overcome that so they can really get into where they're supposed to go?
The one thing that I would say is set your goals, understand what your purpose is. And once you understand what that purpose is and your vision is for your life, get about doing it. Because basically no one is going to put you there. You have to put yourself there. So that's why you have to deal with some of the issues that are personal, whether they are emotional, mental, whatever your roadblocks are. You have to identify those things. And when you identify those things, you strengthen what remains. So after you strengthen what remains, that could be your skill, your gift, your talent, your ability, whatever those things are, and you focus on those things. Of course, there are going to be things that come along that attack or try to hinder, but when you understand what you're doing and where you're going, basically nothing else really matters.
I was looking in your book, and there was a particular thing that you talked about, ego purging. And I guess, you know, when you talk about egos, many people suffer from egos. Give us a little bit about ego purging.
There's what we call a positive ego and a negative ego. And often people don't really know the difference. They think that when someone has character or someone is confident in themselves, that they have an ego that is overwhelming. But in essence, it's really a person that understands who they are, understands their purpose, understands who they were created to be and what they're called to do. And that's what they're projecting. It's really another individual's lack of confidence or self-esteem in themselves that is carrying that perception about them. So often when a person is strong-willed, strong-minded about their gift or whoever they are, that's the perception that people receive from it. But at the same token, there are negative things about the ego that people don't understand, and you could be trying to make yourself more than what you really are, or portraying that in a negative way.
So when you have that positive ego, I guess that's what really needs reinforcement.
Right.
And so when I'm reinforcing my positive ego, what are some, you talk about associations.
Right.
And the fact of how we need to associate with the proper people. Does that help my ego, if you will?
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Because those positive associations reinforce you. Iron sharpens iron. So if you're around people, I always encourage people, first of all, to hang around people that are more intelligent than them. If you are the only intelligent person in your circles, there's a problem with that.
Right.
So you should always be connected to people that can feed your gift, feed your skill, feed your ability, as well as mentor those particular skills and abilities.
All right, we got to take a quick break. Continuing our conversation with Dr. Michael McCain, we're talking about his latest book, Life Editing, Volume 1, Taking Out the Trash, and here he talks about how you can improve your life. We'll get more from Dr. McCain when we return right after this.
Thanks for watching.
I want to invite you to help me celebrate one of 2013's new releases, and that is Called to Affluence. Called to Affluence is a book that I wrote out of an experience, out of revelation and scripture, and God enlightened me to some things. I never professed to be a prosperity person, a prosperity preacher, teacher, or any of that thing. But this particular book has enlightened me. It has opened my eyes to another level. Not just because I wrote it, but because of the revelation that God was pouring into my very spirit. And I wanted to share it with the world. So I wrote Called to Affluence to reach people that have the innate understanding that God has called them to a greater level, that God has called them to more, that he has positioned you, called you to prosper, and helping you identify how at times we may allow roadblocks, hindrances, negative people, situations, occurrences, or circumstances to get in our way and mislead us off that road. So if you want to get on the road to creating affluence in your life, and again, affluence is not about your level of education. It's not about how smart you are. When you're called to affluence, God favors you. He gives you a gift. He gives you a skill. He gives you an anointing. And it's up to you to activate that treasure into the fullness of your purpose. So if you want to learn how to do that, if you want to be motivated, if you want to be inspired to get on the road to affluence, then Called to Affluence is the book for you. I need you to log on to Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and order your